So this week we talked about Jamie Turner, and the brief synopsis of the case: he was a young up-and-coming executive who worked at other places and took this job. Okay, I don't have any of this in front of me, so I'm making it up as I go. He took this job. It seemed like a really good fit. He and the how do you say that name? Cardullo?
Yeah, Cardullo.
Anyway, he seemed like a great boss. They got along really well in the beginning, and then things started to kind of fizzle, and things came up where Pat Cardullo and let's see, basically he kind of became a jerk, but yeah. And so now Jamie's in a position where he either has to make a decision to stay or go. Did I miss anything? We all read it, right?
Yep.
Okay. So there's only 5 questions we have to discuss, so we can do this quickly. What are the root problems of the case?
All right. I think that Cardullo has unclear expectations. We don't really know what his expectations are, or at least Jamie Turner, Mr. Turner, does not know what the expectations are. It's not clear because sometimes he says things are going fine. Other times he says, he blows up and says something was done wrong. He's unpredictable. His personality is unpredictable. He'll be, blow up at people in public, but then he'll be nice in a private one-on-one conversation. He was having some unjustified demands. He was saying that this one guy needed to spend every Monday in Kansas City, which Turner said was not a good use of his time, or of that guy's time. He also has split attention, so we're not sure what his roles really should be, because sometimes he's there and other times he's in San Diego for long periods of time and doesn't have any communication with them. And then there's something about the pricing schedule, how Cardullo took over the pricing schedule, but he didn't weigh the different things when doing it. So you should weigh the demand, the competition, the uniqueness in terms of what the pricing should be. The complaints that are, there were complaints where people were doing, remember that Julie Chin person, how she's not complaining to the right person. She's going straight to Cardullo or whoever, complain instead of going to the direct party that needed to be complained to. Lack of problem solving, communication, decisions. All right, those are the ones I got.
Nice. And you want to add, Christina?
Yeah. Well, what I find interesting about this case study is that, at first, I was so mad at Jamie Turner. So mad at Jamie Turner. I'm sorry. I started out on the side of Jamie Turner, mad at Cardullo. Yeah. And then I found myself thinking, as I thought more about it, I could see his perspective too. And I think they were both in the wrong. And I could see where his behavior could be stemming from, in that he made it clear up front that he wanted to be communicated with. And he was communicated with in the beginning, and then communication started to fail. It doesn't really say where they started to fail from, but I could see how some of his frustrations could have been stemming from the lack of communication. He made a sale, he said that big sales are strictly for Cardullo. The big boss not to make any of the big sales, but then he went back on it and he made a big sale himself to get rid of inventory without clearing it. So it sounded like there was stuff going on both sides. You know what I mean? I feel like there was a total breakdown of communication on both sides. The one guy really should have been on the ball, you know, communicating with his subordinate, and the subordinate should have been communicating with his boss. Like, that's what it felt like to me.
Well, I felt like, I don't know, I was kind of happy in the beginning of the story, the case study, because it seemed like they got along well. But then my biggest issue was I felt like Pat, we'll call him Pat Carduo.
That's a good idea.
I felt like Pat was more interested and committed to the Triple S company than he was MLI.
Yeah, I agree with that.
He shared with Jamie that the president of the company wanted him spending all of his time at MLI and let his team run Triple S, but he completely disregarded that request, and he was splitting his time between the two, and he was bringing executives from Triple S over to MLI with him, and these were very strong alliances that they had with one another. So I really felt like Pat was not doing what was in the best interest of MLI as well, because I felt like he still had such a strong commitment or alliance or whatever with Triple S, where he was asked to come over and turn around this MLI company. So I was not happy with him when I read more about that. And then I don't know that I would be able to work for a boss that wasn't clear in what his expectations were. And then you get yelled at for one thing and then praised the next minute for something else. It just, to me, that would be very confusing. So I kind of found myself siding with Jamie toward the end, where, you know, at one point I was thinking, good grief, just quit and get out of there. But maybe that conversation just needs to be had with Pat, and clear expectations need to be lined up. Because even in the beginning, Pat told him what he wanted him to do and what he was being hired for, but then that completely got obliterated, and he was given much more responsibility than he was originally told he was going to have. And so the expectation, the job description, all of that he was hired for quickly changed, it felt like.
Yeah. Well, and trying to think back to one of the things that I pointed out was I kind of went back to reading, and in the 5 dysfunctions of a team, and I realized that neither one of them, well, maybe Pat had too much allegiance to his one team that had not become his first team anymore, because he was the president of the smaller one. And then Jamie's allegiance wasn't enough with his first team. He wasn't doing as well as he could have working with his peers. He was committed to his sales. So I thought, and I thought that there was just so much listlessness going on, where people were trying to accomplish something, but they didn't agree on what they were trying to accomplish. Like, Pat wanted to make this company work well for Triple S, and Jamie was trying to make the company succeed itself. But like, he pressured one of his peers into giving him one of their most valued employees. Like, anyway, it was just interesting to me how much there was just different things in each of their cases. But Pat definitely started showing some really nasty colors there.
So it sounds like we all agree that the root problems are lack of communication, lack of focused expectations, clear expectations, and ultimately a lack of trust with one another.
And probably lack of having regular meetings flow through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That probably would have helped.
I actually mentioned that in my...
So how did Turner...
Oh, I had just said
that
I had mentioned that idea in my case study, that they needed to be having regular meetings.
Yeah. So how did Turner get himself into this predicament? And what is going on with Pat?
So
I guess Turner got himself into this predicament.
I feel like maybe what happened, and I'm reading a case study, so obviously I wasn't, but it almost seemed like they went in there guns blazing, working really well together. And as Pat started handing the reins over, he almost just I don't want to say gave away too much. But he let go too much. He stopped giving him enough direction. And so he started going in a direction Pat didn't appreciate, but instead of telling him, hey, I don't like the direction this is going, he started getting mad and pitching fits like a toddler, where he busted into meetings and stormed out and, just started passive aggressive is a really great word for it. He started passive aggressively trying to show his displeasure instead of sitting down and talking with Jamie and saying, I don't appreciate this, or this. And in the meantime, Jamie's just trying to figure it out, but he's also not communicating. Like, communication goes both ways, and there's not communication happening on either end. And so the relationship breaks down. So I feel like if he had, it is the boss's job to do that communication, but it's also Jamie's job to communicate with his boss. And if there's breakdown on one end, that doesn't take the blame off of the other end, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think one way he got himself into it to begin with is that he saw some red flags when he was interviewing, and he didn't focus on that. And I don't have the case study in front of me, but the red flags didn't have to do with maybe he didn't meet very many people, or wasn't being introduced to them, or
that was one of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
Might have been indicative that Pat didn't even know people to introduce him really well.
Right. Yeah, it said that his concerns were that he was not introduced to anyone else in the company. The company was still struggling financially. And then Pat divulged that Triple S's CEO had suggested he spend full time at MLI and let his staff run his group, but that did not happen. And then finally, the job for Turner was largely in industrial marketing, which lacked the excitement of surveys, mass advertising, packaging, and other tasks he'd enjoyed in his previous work. So those were his concerns. But then Pat promised him the kind of autonomy he was seeking. And then he also hinted he could have executive potential beyond running MLI. So he certainly promised him what he felt would get him to take the job, but nothing he promised addressed any of the concerns that Jamie had. So I thought that was interesting that Jamie still took the job, even though he had those concerns.
Yeah, but it also goes back down to that lack of communication. He could have started off probably addressing those things via communication before he got the job, and did or did not.
Yep. So what do we think is going on for Pat? Why is he acting like this? What's going on?
Well, I think he's not a very good boss. I don't know. I mean, he doesn't have effective communication with any of his colleagues, especially if he sides with one or two, but then doesn't, gives the other people the cold shoulder or the anger treatment.
Yeah. Well, and I thought it was interesting, it says that his boss said he should spend half his time or all of his time in the one place, and he's still dividing it. Like, he's not being a very good subordinate either.
I kind of felt like the biggest issue with him was he was not committed, or at least it didn't seem like he was committed at all to MLI.
Yeah.
Because after Jamie came on, he just sort of dumped everything on him and said, here you go, run with it. But then he didn't like what he was doing. Like we've said earlier, he wasn't communicating that with him. But I think the biggest issue with Pat was he was not committed at all, or it didn't seem he was committed at all to the MLI company.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless he was there and found a problem with it. But,
Exactly.
being in San Diego or wherever he was all that time, he just didn't focus on it until he showed up for a few days and decided to take over and complain.
Right.
But I felt like he didn't know enough about the company to even make any suggestions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He didn't know, it seemed he didn't really know too much about the company. It was almost like he was trying to run MLI the way he ran Triple S, which that rarely works when you're talking about two separate companies to run them identically. So I felt like he maybe hadn't spent enough time getting to know anything or anyone at MLI and was just looking for somebody to take it over and run with it. But then he didn't like what he was seeing. I don't know. I was confused by him.
I think Cardillo should get fired. I think if I was Amy, after meeting with Cardillo and seeing if I could work things out, I would have a good one-on-one with the Alan guy, the Alan Oliver guy, and then Alan can make the decision who he's going to keep. You know, whether he keeps either or both or neither. Obviously, that guy's coming in to try and fix something, so he might as well find out what's going on.
Yeah. So initially, what did each of them bring to the table that made you think that they were going to be successful, or when did you think they were going to fail?
Well, I thought that Jamie Turner was going to be successful and do a really good job when it talks about how, like, he understood the marketing margins and how, like, your high dollar, low quantity products can have a larger margin because you're not going to sell as many of them. So you need to make up that money in smaller quantities. But the ones that are smaller dollar items that sell in higher quantities, you can have a smaller margin because you have a lot more product to make that money up. He seemed to really know how to manage the market and the prices, optimize the amount of profit you can make off of each item. Whereas Cardillo had been like, you know, just 24% across the board. And he, like, Turner knew that wouldn't work as far as sales go. It seemed like he really understood the marketing and pricing side of his business and how to generate sales and things like that. So it seemed like he was going to do a good job at his specific position.
Why do you think he had that, let that one deal go through that wasn't even at the break-even point? Do you think it was to, you know, good client relationship? Do you think it was to get rid of excess inventory?
Yeah, I think it was to get rid of excess inventory. That's what it kind of sounded like to me. Let me see. Because where did it?
Well, I think it used the words probably, like I said, I don't have the paper in front of me, but I think it used the words something about the sales of excess inventory.
Yeah, it was sales of excess inventory. And so he was just trying to cover the variable costs, because the variable costs are I can't remember the word now. There's variable costs and then there's fixed costs. And the fixed costs, those are going to be charged no matter what. They're already sunk in the fact that it's made. But variable costs, it can be recovered in the selling of smaller sales. So if they have excessive stock and they're not going to be able to sell it at full quantity, I think it's good that he made a sale that would cover at least those costs.
Mm-hmm.
but because even like if you didn't sell them at all, then it doesn't matter that they're below the break-even point. It's still lost, like it's lost funds. It's just,
So why would Cardillo be so mad about it?
I think he was mad because it was a large quantity and the deal had been made that he would be in charge of all of those sales of large quantities. Let me see. Where is it at the top? It says
Because it was yeah, okay.
It's on page 6 under first blowups.
well, I found that, but it says that Turner he said that he would take on everything, but he wanted Cardillo to Pat to stay over any of their big sales. I'm trying to find it. Yeah. So that's kind of what let's see. Cardillo should retain pricing control over very large orders. That's what it says. So it was a large order that was not authorized or the price set by Cardillo. He didn't even approve it with him. He didn't talk it over with him. He found it out from a different employee that, like, I would almost say she ratted him out because that was kind of an underhanded move instead of just going straight to him and saying, hey, didn't you say you were going to run this by this guy first? She just went straight to the guy.
Yeah. So really, I really think it just comes back down to the lack of communication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think maybe he overreacted because maybe with the owner of the company, Pat was going to take a hit for this versus Jamie, because if he was supposed to be over that, then the owner would look at Pat for a reason. Why did you do this? So he was transferring that anger. He didn't want to get in trouble, so to speak, with the owner. So he was getting upset with Jamie for doing that and demanding an explanation, because he would then have to give the explanation to Oliver about that. And so I'm thinking that's maybe where the blow up and the frustration came, and it was not the right way of handling it. Instead of trying to understand why he would do something like this, he was more angry and upset and came at it from a completely different perspective than trying to understand so that he could maybe understand why that decision was made. So, next question, what were the key choice points where either of them could have done things differently? I feel like we hit on these all the time.
Yeah, you do.
Well, the key choice points would be they could have communicated better.
Yeah. Every time they ran into something where communication.
Yeah.
I mean, even when he set the new pricing controls, it doesn't say Turner voiced his concerns to Cardillo. It just says he knew it wouldn't work. That's it.
Well, and then you get some of his executives from Triple S stuck in the middle, and I feel like what was her name? Julie Chen.
Yeah.
She was kind of stuck in the middle where she's going to have more alliance, so to speak, with Pat than she is Jamie, because she doesn't know Jamie. She just started working with Jamie, where she's been with Pat for years and years at Triple S, and then he chooses to bring her here to this new company. There's going to be a stronger alliance there than there is with the new guy.
Yeah.
And so she's now stuck in the middle, and maybe Jamie's feeling attacked because they're so closely aligned.
Probably. Yeah, I felt like it was a little bit of like that was just so messy.
It was.
But I mean, ultimately, I feel like if a company is messy like that, it really was Pat's job to fix that. As manager, as the president, he should have seen the problems and tried to fix them, not just explode about them.
Yeah. So are there any other key points that they could have done other than communicate better? I think that's where it all stems from.
Yeah, I think so too.
It all comes back to communication. So then last question, how, if at all, should Turner approach Pat at the end of the case? Should he approach him, and how would he do that? Remember, Oliver is coming into town or something like that next day or that day, and
I certainly, go ahead.
Oh, you first. Go for it.
Well, I certainly think that he should attempt to strike a conversation with him and work it out with him. But some people are just unwilling to communicate. You know, they're just going to be stubborn. And if he ends up being stubborn and not wanting to discuss issues, then that issue in and of itself needs to be brought to Alan's attention, because that's a key importance with managing and leadership. So the things that I felt that they should talk about, I felt that they should list their goals. So if he was going to meet with him, if Cardillo was willing to talk to him about the issues, they should discuss the specific goals. They should discuss recurring meeting times. They should talk about ways that they can implement the goals, including roles and responsibility of who should oversee what. And that should be very clear and clarified. And they should also discuss their communication issues, the fact that they're not communicating well. So I think that those 4 things, listing the goals, discussing recurring meetings, talking about specific objectives, and talking about the communication issues and what they should do to address them, would be very effective. And then I would bring those things that they discussed to Mr. Oliver, Alan Oliver, and say, well, we've had these issues, but we've decided that these are going to be our goals and these are the steps, and, you know, explain that to him. And if, again, if the 3-minute meeting before, or however, or the short meeting before Oliver gets there is not effective, then that just needs to be addressed to Oliver.
Yeah. Well, and I think that if he reads the situation well, if he's a people reader, he'll realize that he's going to get the best response by being a little bit humble. Like, I feel like we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I think if he defers to him as the leader and not so, like, as though Cardillo is the leader and he is trying to broach this, then I think that you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. I think you'd get a better response if he says, I feel like, you know, and I'm gone.
Good point, though. Excellent point. He needs to be humble and respectful of the leadership position in approaching this meeting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So do you think that they should discuss it openly in front of the owner with 3 of them there, or individually?
I think they should start off individually, see if it's effective, and then, oh, you're saying should they meet together?
Yeah, all 3 of them to discuss it and vet it out, or should Turner approach Alan individually without Pat there?
I would do it individually, because you can be honest, you know, without the other worrying about what your boss is thinking of you.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think, Brenda?
Well, I would be more comfortable doing it individually. I think that it would benefit Alan to meet with each of them individually and then bring them together and say, sounds like we have a few things that we need to accomplish, a few things that need to be discussed, and then find a way of bringing them together to discuss the issues that they're having.
Yeah, and maybe
in a non-threatening way.
Yeah, and Alan can lead the discussion when
Sorry,
guys brought together. Hey, welcome back.
Hey.
We were just discussing how we felt about if Turner should approach Alan Oliver individually or discuss the concerns with all three of them in the room.
Ooh. I would worry about the pride of Pat. Like he'd try and save face. I don't know. Well, that's why you'd hope that one meeting went well, because I think probably some of the behaviors need to be addressed. Yeah, probably privately, because I don't see, with Pat's personality, I don't see him taking it very well if they're all in the room together.
Although he doesn't bash in public. No, wait, in private.
No, he does.
Hold on. He does in public.
He does bash.
Right. Because it's considered public when you're in front of 3 people.
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, in the meetings, he called people out all the time. He was, in executive meetings, he was.
But he was the leader. His boss wasn't there.
Yeah.
That's true. Well, maybe, but I definitely think he should at least discuss it with him. Like he and Turner and Cordillo need to sit down first and see how that goes. And then even just say, well, maybe we need to discuss some of these concerns with Oliver when he gets here.
Yep.
It's really messy when people don't communicate well.
When people don't get along.
It's hard fixing communication problems.
So those are all the questions. So any last comments you'd like to share? Have any of you been in this type of situation before?
I don't think I have, but I haven't been back in business for very long. Before that, I was just a little nothing. And now my boss is pretty cool, so.
I've had a coworker that was very difficult to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very bad at communicating. Very, very bad. And lo and behold, as soon as I switched companies and left that one, she got fired within just a couple weeks.
Oh, wow.
So really interesting, because I feel like I probably saved grace for her, mellowed things out. If she blew something up, I would fix it. And then there was no reason.
So she couldn't survive without you.
Yeah, and she really not a nice person, not good at communicating, not good at listening. Very didn't want to listen. So I think that they have this sort of thing in a lot of different jobs. And there's some people who try and be the peacemaker or make things work out, and there are other people who, I don't know, they just do whatever they want.
Yeah. Well, I guess the thing that I have seen, it happened when I wasn't there, interestingly enough, but my coworker and we work in accounting, and it's at a credit union. And so there's this issue that comes up called force balancing, where you are not, like, money, it may or may not be missing, but it's not in the right place on the books. And so you're supposed to put it in a ledger called the overs and shorts. just until you know where it is, right? And we'd had several supervisors sort of skirting around the report, because that's how it gets reported, that money went missing for a day and then was found again. They were skirting around it by just fixing it the next day when they found it. And finally, my coworker and I had enough issues with trying to fix that on the back end that we brought it up to the compliance manager. And I went on vacation the next week. So I didn't get the blowback after that email. Compliance manager. I guess for a couple supervisors that came back, because that email it ended up a big email between all the supervisors and stuff. And they were really upset because it was like making them look bad and stuff. And this one supervisor, I swear, every time you tell her that one of her tellers did something wrong, she takes it personally. Like she's doing something wrong. And I want to be like, we're not letting you know because we think anything less of you. We're letting you know so that you know to fix it. Like, yeah. But it's just interesting how like some people, instead of just seeing the lesson, will just double down and I don't know, try and cover their heights.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of what I saw in Pat Cardillo. Instead of just saying, oh, maybe I was wrong, or oh, maybe we need to fix this, he's like, what? Anyway.
All right. Well, that's the end. I wish that they had put on here the outcome, because I would really like to know, but they didn't. There's no outcome on this one. Darn it. I really wish they had, because I would love to know. Why does it say you are presenting to everyone?
No, it said you're presenting to everyone.
I am? Oh, that's weird.
Way to
Are
go.
you playing with buttons?
I didn't do anything. That was so weird. Sorry, that totally distracted me. All right. So there's no ending to this case study. We all get to just figure it out on our own and in our own minds, make up our own endings. So.
Okay. Well, I think they'll get fired, both of them, and then.
There we go. Start over.
Yeah.
All right. So we can stop broadcasting now, I guess.
All right. Let's see.
Do you guys want me to start the